I think we're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the VbE International Conference 2020. My name's Sue Webb. I'm a consultant for VbE, and I'm thrilled to welcome you all. Yesterday, World Values Day was celebrated all over the world. I hope you managed to join in with the values song, or at least be engaged in thinking about living and sharing positive human values. Never has the world needed us to take values-based action so much. Today, we welcome hundreds of values-based practitioners from Australia, Brazil, Brunei, Cameroon, Canada, Grenada, India, Ireland, Italy, Jamaica, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Malta, Morocco, Nepal, Nigeria, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Slovakia, South Africa, Sweden, Taiwan, the Netherlands, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and Zambia. Amazing. Thank you so much to everybody for coming. We hope and we know you'll have an interesting and an uplifting day, and that you take away nuggets of inspiration to help you carry on your brilliant work and keep making the difference to the world that you're working so hard to do, wherever you are in the world. I'd like to say a huge thank you to the team who have helped us put this event together. There'll be a proper thank you at the end, but here's the first. It's from my heart to all of the people that have made this happen. We've got a packed morning for you. We've divided it into 3 sections. So you'll have time for a couple of comfort breaks and hopefully a little bit of time to reflect on what you've heard. Each session consists of a panel of brilliant speakers who will share their work with you. And then they'll come together at the end to have a panel discussion and answer some of your questions. So please type your questions into the panel, and we'll choose as many as possible. If you're on Twitter, please click over to Periscope, where you'll be able to send in comments and questions. If you're on Facebook and YouTube, you'll be able to send them direct. After lunch, you're invited to attend a choice of fantastic workshops taking place via Zoom links. So these will be interactive and inspirational. Please don't miss these, even though it's a Friday afternoon. You may hear something that changes what you do or even how you live. We really have got amazing people delivering these workshops. So for the full conference programme, including information about all the speakers, as well as all the links to all the workshops, head over to the VbE website and find the conference page under the support tab. The website's very easy to remember. It's valuesbasededucation.com. But we will post links all over social media, so you can click on those. Please join us in posting and sharing. Use our hashtag VbEZone. So it's now my pleasure and privilege to introduce our first panel. We wouldn't be here at all without the vision, the determination, the drive, and the passion of the founder of Values-Based Education, Dr. Neil Hawkes. This is Neil's life's work, and it's incredible to think that this global movement started in one school with one teacher. A single person really can make a huge difference in the world. Bridget Knight is an amazing person. She's a serving head teacher of a wonderful school, and she's the CEO of Values-Based Education. If you haven't heard her speak before, really be prepared to be awed by her passion and her belief in the power of values to create good in the world. And Professor Mick Waters, a patron, a friend of VbE, and a champion of all things values, a huge national and international voice in the world of education, and also a true visionary. So thank you so much for being here. I'm just also excited for this event. We hope you have a wonderful morning with us and then a fantastic afternoon in your workshops. So it's my delight to welcome Dr. Neil Hawkes, who's going to talk about the International Values-Based Education Trust.
Thank you so much, Sue. May I echo everything that you've said. I'm feeling really touched in my heart because I know so many people have joined today throughout the world. And I'd like to say a really big thank you for joining us today. It's personally very moving to know people are there from so many different countries. You all join with me in trying to make our world a better place for ourselves and our children. Yesterday, my wife Jane said to me, Neil, she said, just look outside the window. So I went and looked, and there across a lake where we live near was the most amazing rainbow. So often you do see a half rainbow, but this was a complete rainbow, and the sun was shining through it, and it was just the most amazing sight. And I suddenly realized that there is incredible hope for us all. The symbol of the rainbow through cultures, well, for the last 3,000 years, the rainbow has meant hope to humanity. And I think humanity really is crying out for hope at this time. We face so many challenges, but I believe, because I'm an optimist, that we can all together work to make things better for our world, for our planet that's crying out for real positive action from us all. So that rainbow really changed my mind about what I was going to say today. I thought, Neil, you speak from your heart. Sue said about yesterday. Yesterday was another amazing day in my life because it was World Values Day. And I joined a panel of speakers organized from Australia, and we joined with colleagues in America as well. And during the session, which wasn't just about education, it was about business and how we bring values into all walks of life. And I was asked, well, what's the challenge that we face in getting values into organizations? And I sort of paused and I thought, I know what the biggest challenge is. And I pointed to myself. I realized that I am the biggest inhibitor for values to be developed at any depth. And it's taken me a long time to realize that. I then thought back of my early days as a teacher and as a head teacher and realized that I had a lot of learning to do. I was appointed as a head teacher far too young, and I'm sure I made a great number of errors. But very kind colleagues kept me going and picked me up. And I had some marvelous mentors who helped me. And that's really why I sort of thought, well, we must think about our internal world. Many of you will know that Jane and I have written a book called The Inner Curriculum, The Inner Curriculum. And that curriculum, I think, is so important for us to really understand what motivates us as people. What inhibits us? Are there parts of our personality that get in the way? I know I have several parts of my personality that can stop the values dynamic. If I suddenly become over self-conscious, I become a bit nervous, and then I don't speak my truth. Or another part of me can be a bit of a show-off, and I have to watch that part. So we all have these aspects of personality that can stop our real self, that true nature that each one of us has, and I believe we all share, which can make our world a better place. So the inner curriculum is so important for schools to think about. Bridget, Mick, Nigel, and others have been thinking about the values curriculum that we should have. And Nigel and I have been thinking about a simple model that could sort of get people to understand what's missing in schools at the moment, worldwide. If you think in your mind about a big circle, and the big circle is filled with knowledge, exams, all the sort of logical side, lots of knowledge, all those sort of things, which are really important, then that's what the school curriculum is mainly filled with. There's another little circle, if you can just picture that, and that little circle is all the things that we believe in. I think it's the circle of the heart. The other was the circle of the brain. And the heart is all the things we can't get hold of. You can't get hold of the feelings I'm having for you today. They're in me, they're in my spirit, as it were, but they're real. Unfortunately, I can't measure them. So in systems, they don't measure feelings and those sort of things, because how can you measure a feeling? But they're still important. And the one thing that makes us different from other animals is that we're able to have these incredible emotions, which, if correctly used, can be real agents for change in the world. I would like to see the two circles of equal size, so that the curriculum of a school nourishes the brain, gives lots of knowledge and all that stuff, but at the same time acknowledges the soul of people, what actually makes life on this planet so incredible, the relationships we have. I've had the privilege of having relationships with most of you who are watching today in some form, either through email or meeting you personally or through my books. So relationships. I was once asked years ago what makes a good school, and I said three things: relationships, relationships, and guess what? Relationships. And that's what I learned as a young head teacher, that no matter how clever I tried to be, if I didn't actually ensure my relationships were accurate with others, then things didn't happen. Now, let's come on to the IVET Foundation, the International Values Education Trust, now known as the IVET Foundation. Many years ago, I founded this charity, the education arm of which is values-based education. That IVET Foundation is looking as a transformational group movement to transform not only education, but the social fabric of the world. It's really exciting. Lots of people are joining us in this movement for change. I would like to invite you to become an affiliate of the IVET Foundation. You can do that by looking at our charter. And if that charter resonates with you and you feel that, yes, this is what you represent too, then please do apply to the IVET Foundation to be one of our affiliates. There are many people now. We have hairdressers, physiotherapists, teachers, business people who have become IVET affiliates, and they downloaded a certificate which they put up in their businesses. And this tells the world that they are driven by positive human values. And I think that's really exciting. I would like to get to the stage where you walk down a high street anywhere in the world and you deliberately go into shops who display the certificate saying they are values-based. Now let's just think about values for my last few minutes. At West Kidlington School in Oxfordshire, where I had the great privilege to work with outstanding people, Sue very kindly said I was the founder of values-based education, but I think it was the community of West Kidlington School that are the real people who founded it. It was the marvelous staff I had and the community who gave me their full support. It was transformational. What happened was I was beginning to notice that children were increasingly coming to school, and I'm looking at the 90s now, and they seem to lack an understanding of values such as respect, honesty. And I thought, why haven't they got these naturally? And so in discussion with the community, we thought, well, let's see what would happen if we, the staff and the children, explore these values. And we did this over 7 years. And the work was looked at by Oxford University, which I'm indebted to Professor Richard Pring, who was my mentor and ensured that we were really objective in our work of analyzing the effects of values-based education. And what we found over those 7 years was something incredible, more than I ever thought. Number one was that the effects on the adults was what we thought was incredible. The adults thought about the values, but much more than that, they thought about their behavior. Now, you can all walk into places that have values on walls. Those are the explicit values. But what are the implicit values? How does an organization really work? Do they really live their values? And that was the challenge we had at West Kidlington. And we didn't always get it right. We're ordinary human beings, and we didn't always get it right, but we were determined to improve day by day. So the adults had consistency across the whole school. The next thing we introduced was, of course, reflection, getting the children to think about the words, but go internal and think deeply. And I think, and I know now through the work of Dr. Dan Siegel, what effect that has on the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the executive function of the brain. It actually wakes that up so that you are more aware. I think if each of us today goes away just a little bit more aware of the effects we have on others and the effects we have on ourselves, I think our day would be happier for ourselves and others too. I get lost in myself sometimes, and Jane will remind me, wake up, Neil, come into the world, you know. I get locked in my brain. But it's when you come out and actually start having an interaction with other people, being more aware. So today, may I give you a challenge? Today, in every interaction that you have with another person, just be more aware. Do too what my grandma said. My grandmother was my greatest mentor when I was a little boy. She said, Neil, you talk too much. She said, please listen more. Listen to others. And that's why I've become a people watcher. I love watching people. I love watching you today, all you wonderful people. So my takeaway message is I'm full of hope. I'm full of hope for the world. Yes, we do face crisis, but if you empower yourself to be the change that the world could be, then together the movement of the IVET Foundation can create a new scenario. Finally, I've been privileged over the last few weeks to join a group of colleagues worldwide who are writing papers for the G20 summit that's happening in Saudi Arabia in November. We have been tasked with writing about values and how those values should underpin all the goals of countries in the world. Climate change, women's equal rights, getting children, girls particularly, more in school. All those goals can only be achieved through values. And I've written a case study which I think, I hope, touches the nub of what we need to do. We need, my dear friends, to light up ethical intelligence in people. Can you imagine a world where our leaders really do aspire to positive human values? They are authentic, and they then will speak because they have ethical intelligence. And that is the end product of values-based education. Have a great day. This is going to be a marvelous conference. Sue and her team have done a great job. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you so much, Neil. An inspirational start to the conference, and we've got lots of comments coming in saying hi from all over the world, actually. I didn't say Thailand. We've got Thailand here now as well. So wonderful, one of international values-based school in Thailand that we know very well. So thank you, Neil. Light up ethical intelligence. Yes, amazing. Bridget, we're going to come to you now. Bridget's going to be talking about the impact of values-based education for the heart, the mind, and the spirit.
Good morning, everybody. It's absolutely amazing to be with you all today. And my question to you is simply, are you looking for something better? Because if you are, I think you'll be interested in what the day has to offer. I'd like to talk to you about the impact of values-based education for the heart, mind and spirit, and why a values-based approach to education gives your children the edge. So thank you, Sue. As Sue said, I'm Bridget Knight, and I have the great honour to be the CEO of values-based education. I've been involved in this movement for around 30 years, working with Dr. Neil Hawkes, and that means I've been leading a values-based school in many different settings in different parts of the country, and I've also been involved in helping others set up their values-based schools as an inspector and working with schools nationally. Values-based education works on so many levels, and it speaks to our experience and shapes our outlook on that experience. Put more simply, you might say values-based education brings out the best in people. And we are all globally facing some of the most testing times we've ever faced. And I would commend a values-based approach to you right now as much as any other time, because this is something that is a forever gift. I've always said that in giving our children a values-based education, we're giving them a lifetime's gift. And here's why. So values-based education is for the heart. It resonates with our deepest impulses and emotions, and its key characteristic is nurture. And one of the children I've had the privilege to teach, who's now a young adult in her own right, has said to me in recent years, values-based education has given me something that I've taken with me through my life, and I treasure it. We know from her voice and through the many, many other young people who are out in the world now, that it resonates and the impact goes on and on. So values are the principles that we live by, but also live up to, and they intimately help us decide how to think and feel and act. They're not fixed entities. We all bring our own context and perspective, and of course emotions most of all to bear. But I think what happens is when we affiliate to universal positive human values, such as hope and love, peace, kindness, and so on, when we try to live through them, we live up to them and we live up to our own ideals. And when we do that, of course, all the while we're building a more ideal world. Through the lens of values, therefore, we become able to see ourselves and each other and our world with an ethical objectivity. And this is about developing the ethical intelligence that Neil has been talking about already this morning. So this in turn feeds our intellectual and intuitive curiosity and enables us to engage in a really deep consideration of life's issues, and ultimately to develop an outlook of care, active care for ourselves, for others and for our world. So through this process, the values are becoming dynamic. They're not just words, they're actions that are thought and felt and lived. So values-based education is also for the mind. It's an orientation, and it works hand in hand, therefore, with all the high standards, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes that we deeply want our children to be able to have. a little boy I used to teach once said to me, he said, it's hard to live with the values. He said, but I bother because it helps me as I work my way through life. And goodness me, he was only 8, but the deep resonance that the values were having with him, I was just so full of admiration. He'd thought about that so deeply. And I can so connect with, it's really hard sometimes to live with values. But he's right. He's right, isn't he? Because it's worth it. Because when we look for values, these positive human values are everywhere. They're inherent through all our life. And so, of course, they run through the whole curriculum that we offer our children in schools. They're conveyed through the teacher's words, their actions, their attitudes, relationships, as we've already been saying this morning, as well as through the subject matter itself. A values-based curriculum for the mind makes explicit the values that might otherwise be just implicit, or even, oh goodness me, lying dormant from disuse. So by heightening awareness of values, we enable them to play a vital role in teaching and learning, because it strengthens the moral and ethical and social, spiritual and cultural aspects of the curriculum by bringing a closer attentiveness to what makes us human. Just the other day, talking about this very thing with a teacher of mine in my current school, she said to me, gosh, this is really radical, isn't it? And it is. It is radical. It's also beautifully natural and commonsensical. But I think it is tremendously impactful and has the potential to be transformative for all our schools and therefore for our future. And the current work that the great Mick and Neil Hawkes and I are engaged with right now is about really eliciting what are the values that run through our different subject matters, and how can subject disciplines themselves be the carriers for this great work, and what can we do to really illuminate values-based approaches through our current curriculum. And we're approaching a range of educators to engage with us on this. And here's an invitation for everybody this morning. If you feel that you'd like to be involved in this work, we'd love to hear from you, because we'd love to share this as widely as possible. And I'm sure that you'd have a great insight. So values-based education has an impact for heart, for mind, but values-based education is also for the spirit. It gives voice to our innermost feelings and emotions and connections, and illuminates our path. I think a values-based approach is ultimately cleansing and uplifting. It's our inner world, the inner curriculum that Neil's just been talking about, and put most beautifully, most poignantly by 9-year-old Saskia, who said to me, it's like a door opening and showing you the way. And it is, Saskia, you're so right. Because when we amplify values, we bring to life the broad purpose of education, which is to promote the spiritual, moral, cultural, intellectual, mental and physical development of pupils. My goodness, we do so much in education. And when we do that for our pupils, of course, we're doing that for wider society. This is for everybody. And as we teach our pupils this, we're teaching ourselves. So this is for adults and for children. And in doing so, we're enabling all of us to gain the best from our opportunities, and what's more, to take responsibility for shaping those opportunities and creating those opportunities to make the best of their life and our world. Neil spoke a little earlier about the inner curriculum and the inner world, which is so vital to all of us and to this work. And I know that when we teach children the skills of a values-based reflection, when we invite them into that most intimate of relationships with themselves, then we enable them to develop positive relationships with others and their world. And we invite them to develop a relationship with the numinous. You know, that sense of otherness that perhaps we feel that's out there, that intangible, that some people call the spirit. And Jane Hawkes and I are currently working on the most amazing journey into developing a range of resources for children to really experience reflection on a regular basis. And we're looking into amplifying this work right now. And if this has struck a chord with you, then I invite you to come to our workshop this afternoon, where you can find out a bit more about it. But also, we're developing a range of resources that are going to be on the values-based website. So I'd love it if you were able to look at those and maybe feedback to us about those. So values-based education is for the heart, the mind, the spirit. And in values-based schools, values-based education is the emotional heartbeat, transforming the everyday. And we know this because we see so many values-based schools that have gone forward for our quality mark, for our enhanced quality mark. And there are so many schools out there that we don't yet know about who are doing this amazing transformational work every single day. It's no coincidence that they're the best, because if I can put it this way, values-based schools lean towards the light. Their leaders, their staff, their families will always find the best way through and the best way of doing things, and they will accentuate the positive. There's something almost indefinably beautiful about our values-based schools, and there's something essential about them that gives children and adults both, I think, a kind of anchorage in the world that enables them all to be the best that they can be. And maybe 9-year-old Ben sums it up when he says, values-based education makes me feel safe. You always feel there'll be someone there for you. I love this bit. He says, it gives you something to lean back on and remember forever. Well, with values-based education, you give the lifetime's gift. And I'd like to finish by thanking all of you across the world for everything you're doing, every second of every day, to give your children a lifetime's gift. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bridget. I am always awed when I hear you talk. My heart and my mind, especially my soul. We have loads of comments from all over the world. Thank you so much to people who are making comments. We can see people have joined us from the Seychelles. It's 4 a.m. in Canada, and people are staying awake and watching and are at our conference. Please type in questions, because we're going to hear from Professor Mick Waters in a moment, and then we're going to come together as a panel. And if you type in some questions and some that you'd like to be discussed, then please do that, and I'll be picking those up as Mick's talking, and we'll have some time to chat about those at the end. So it's my pleasure, my delight to welcome Professor Mick Waters. He's, as I said, a patron, a friend, a champion of values, an innovator and a visionary, and he's here with us. Thank you so much, Mick.
Oh, look, it's lovely to be with you, Sue, and hello to everybody, wherever you're listening from, as we enjoy what will be a fascinating conference during the day. I've been asked to build on what Neil and Bridget have talked about in terms of values, and just talk for a few seconds about where that fits in with the world of COVID and where schools are at the moment, and what we're trying to do for children in their learning in these very, very difficult times, and where values can sit in that. Now, I've been a teacher, a head teacher, and I currently try to help schools in all sorts of areas of the world. And I think if you want a school to be as good as it can be, or a classroom to be as good as it can be, there are sort of three fundamental principles of organisation that really matter. And they are, if I had a long while today, I'd go into them in depth. But actually, if you create the right environment, physically, socially, emotionally, if you create the right experiences for children to draw them into learning and to take them further than they've ever believed, and if you create the right group of people to help learning to happen, you probably end up with a high quality classroom or a high quality school. And a lot of head teachers will be saying, well, I have to sort out the budget, and I have to sort out HR, and I have to sort out communications, and I have to sort out, and the list goes on. And I do agree, you have to sort all those things out. And every teacher has to sort out lots and lots of things like planning and marking and sorting out how to do the daily life. But actually, it comes back to three very fundamental things that you can change. You organise the budget to make a better environment, better experiences, and get better people. You organise the way in which you manage the systems of your classroom to try and create the environment, the experiences, and the people together. The people including the children in the classroom. Now, if you can see what I'm saying, and I've done that really quickly, what happens when we get something that's a challenge to us, such as COVID, is that we think, well, we've got to do something totally different. And of course it's different. The world is grappling with something that's, for us in our generation, is something we haven't had to deal with in a very long while. But you still hold true to those three areas. The environment, yes, we're in most parts of the world, we're in a sort of mask wearing, socially distanced, antiseptic smelling, front facing environment. Classrooms look very different at the moment. But that doesn't mean that because we have to have an organised, perfunctory, minimal level of environment for safety, that the way in which we work with children has to continue to be sterile. We don't want a sterile experience in terms of environment for children. At the moment, they need to see beauty. They need things to reflect on. They need beautiful music. They need to see beautiful art. They need to enjoy the wonder of nature all around them. Neil started by talking about the weather yesterday. Wherever we are on the globe, that amazing thing that keeps turning the globe and changing day into night and night into day and creating those amazing things that we see around us are things to behold and enjoy in terms of the environment. And in terms of the experiences children are having at the moment in terms of COVID, then just because the environment is sterile and has to be, then that doesn't mean their experience of learning needs to be. In lots of parts of the globe at the minute, there is a rush by central governments to say, let's do catch up, let's do recovery learning, let's make children gain the ground that they lost while they were away from school. Well, learning isn't a race. It isn't about getting to the front first. Learning is about being absorbed, intrigued, following things through to the depth of learning that we need. Our children at the moment, in many cases, are coping with some of the turmoil of this pandemic. Some of them are really struggling in terms of their outlook on life. So what they need, surely, is something that helps them to recreate. And we used to have a phrase that was called, what do you do for recreation? Well, recreation comes from recreate. How do we give our children the opportunity to recreate, to play with words in extended stories, in novels, to enjoy the way music brings life to a different perspective, to get intrigued by doing something simple like some needlecraft in which they can be absorbed and sort of sucked into their inner self. And so what I'm saying is the environment might be different from what we would imagine and want. That doesn't mean the experiences have to be totally limited to the environment that we're creating for safety. And just to finish my bit by talking about the most important element, the people, now more than ever, our children need the sorts of people that Neil and Bridget have been talking about this morning. Our children need to see the human side of the grown-ups with whom they work. We obviously need our children to make progress, whatever that might look like. We want them to do well in a whole series of basic functions in life. But that doesn't mean that their teacher or their head teacher needs to be simply a driver of performance. Schools need to be places of intrigue, of incitement, of excitement, of wonder, where children can dwell on some of the amazing things that we seem to think are worth fighting for on this planet and seem to be worth getting through this terrible pandemic for. And that's what we call values. We want our children to realize that values are what will drive their learning forward and help them to grow. So I think whether we're a teacher, a head teacher, an administrator, an organizer, somebody responsible for hundreds of schools, the environments we create, the experiences we offer children, the people they meet are still the fundamentals. And if we hold true to values, we will bring a joy and purpose to children's lives. And it's a joy and purpose that will sustain them for the rest of their life if we get it right. Enjoy the conference, enjoy the workshops, take the opportunity to be with people from across the globe and keep making a difference to children's lives. Keep doing good things. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you so much for your wise words, Mick, and your encouragement always. Just a logistical question has come in. Is the conference being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. This part, the morning part, is being recorded and it will be posted. So you will be able to watch it later if you have to nip off. But how can you possibly nip off? Just stay with us all morning, please. We're heading for a break at 10. So we've got about 15 minutes for people to ask questions of Neil, Bridget and Mick. Don't think we've got any specific questions coming at the moment. Mick, I loved what you said about joy and purpose. I loved what everybody said. So maybe I can kick off with it. You know, how do we bring joy and purpose into our schools? Perhaps sort of values-based education is it's a long-term initiative, I suppose. We see those changes coming and deepening over time. But what would any of you say that people could do tomorrow even to bring joy and purpose into their schools? Who would like to speak to that?
Do you want me to start? I think it is about a state of mind that teachers and head teachers and people who spend their time with children elect to give children a sense of optimism in the way they approach the day. They give the children a sense that there's a value in being together, there's a value in learning, and there's a value in taking things forward. that is worth exploring. So come on, let's enjoy this thing that we call education. Children strive for education if they think it's worth it. And I think tomorrow morning, whether it's a poem, well, whatever morning it is we next meet children, it's a poem, it's a story, it's something that happened yesterday. It's let's look out of the window. It's let's get rooted in what why this matters and how we bring it to life for the long term. The long term grows out of lots of short terms. I'll stop for a second.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm smiling to myself because I remember before the COVID, some years ago, going into a classroom, visiting the classroom, and the teacher said, oh, here's Neil Hawkes, I must stick to my lesson plan. So she was doing a lesson plan, and she didn't notice that it had begun snowing outside the window, and all the little ones' eyes were looking out of the window. And she continued on. I said to her at the break, I said, why didn't you let them all go and just experience? It's just that wonderful moment. What learning could have taken place? You know, a snowflake in itself has so much mathematics, so much language, and it's that waking up to the real world. I visited 2 schools in recent weeks, School A, which will remain nameless, and I walked through the door, and the atmosphere, Mick was talking about atmosphere, the atmosphere was fear, absolute fear. Dr. Hawkes, will you do this? Dr. Hawkes, will you do that? Put your mask on, do this, do that, do that. And all sensible things they were saying to me, but the underlying thing was fear. And when I went through the school, there was that fear everywhere, no joy. No, so what were the children getting from that? The second school I went to was a special school not far from where I live, run by a great head teacher, Robin. And when I visited that school, they had a safe environment. They had thought so deeply about how they continue giving what Mick talked about, incredible experiences to children, but at the same time keeping them and the staff safe. And so I didn't feel fear. It wasn't a fear-driven school. It was a joy-filled school that was sensible. So my plea is that look again at yourself. What's driving you today? Are you so frightened? When I go for a walk near us, there's some people that also go for walks. And when they see me coming, I took it quite personally at first. They cross over to the other side of the road to avoid me. And it's because they're so frightened, and probably with good reason, about the COVID. But we need to check out, about how we're living our lives. If this is the last day of your life today, do you want it to be filled with joy or fear? I know what I want, a bit of joy.
Thank you, Neil. Absolutely. Bridget, I wonder if you'd like to speak to that question as well.
Thank you. Well, you asked what can we do tomorrow in our schools to start making a difference, Sue, and building on what Mick has been talking about with atmosphere and Neil has been talking about with relationships, I think it is that orientation, about connecting to children not as pupils but as people. And I know I used the word pupils earlier when I spoke, but if we can start to see our children as people and not just pupils in our care, what we do is we start to connect, may I say, soul to soul with them. We start to connect with the person, and that is a very different experience to connecting with just a pupil. A slightly more prosaic thought is something that was suggested to me and that I find immensely helpful, is to have the value that the school has chosen about for the month on the walls, all around, so that everybody knows about it, but everybody can see it and be reminded of it. So as an example of that, our value this month at my school is unity. And it's just amazing how every time I see that word on our lovely poster in the classroom, that reorientates my mind. Yeah, unity. You know, let's use that value to solve this problem, or let's use that value to realign how I'm thinking about what's just happened. And you know, obviously you speak about it with the children, and it's just so connecting and reorienting. So that's a really quick win, actually. You know, have your values emblazoned across the school.
Thanks so much, Bridget. Thanks so much, everybody, for those that encouragement and those practical ideas. Julie has a question. Thank you, Julie. It's for Neil. And Julie says, how do we ensure our values are current for the demands outside of school? For example, the pressure of gaming. That's a huge one, isn't it?
It is a huge one. I noticed, Julie, thank you, Julie. I noticed that you had written about that and my mind was whirling for an answer. But it took me back to the work I've been doing with the G20 Summit group and looking at what the goals of the summit are to be. And there's a huge section now on media and how you help children to really be aware of this thing called fake news and other things like that. And one of the takeaways that they hope from the summit is that schools will focus. And I had to laugh when I saw this at one stage, and I'll tell you why. They said we need to focus more on media studies. Now, I was told by a certain chief inspector of schools in the UK some years ago, in the middle 90s it was, that media studies was a soft option and had no place in the academic curriculum. And now, of course, it's a vital ingredient. How do we sensitize our children to be aware of the range of newspapers, say, in this country? You know, I always look on the news feed to see what all the papers are saying, and not to just concentrate on one. My dad was an insurance official years ago. And I once asked him, I said, Dad, why do you read that paper? And I pointed at one of these sort of papers that I didn't think he'd want to read. And he said, I talk to lots of people, Neil. I need to know what they are reading so that I can influence them. And since then, I've always looked at a range of newspapers because a newspaper is sold to you because they know they're reflecting your attitudes, your values. So we need to help children to make judgments, and gaming is similar. You know, we can't go against things like gaming. There's some wonderful things going on in gaming. So I was being taught the other day, but it's getting children to be discriminatory, able to discriminate. I worry about the games that are full of violence, and getting children to really ask themselves, well, are there other games that I could be playing? So having those debates in your school, in your classroom, come out. You know, don't have my daughter was sitting around the table with her 11-year-old, and the subject came up about having babies and things. And in my daughter's house, there's no taboo subjects. And the talk was very sensitively handled, but there's no sort of, you mustn't talk about that. When I was growing up, we learned most things on the playground. No one talked to us about things. But we now need an environment in school which is safe, which is measured, which allows these very important subjects to be discussed at the appropriate levels for age and stage of children. So, Julie, I hope that's partly answered your question, but they're tough ones and we need to really think about them.
Thank you very much, Neil. And we always say it's that ethical vocabulary that we use in schools and that we build in schools that helps us to talk about these concepts and these philosophical ideas, I suppose, these big questions about life, isn't it? And help children to make wise decisions through their values. I think we've got time for one last question. I'm going to direct this to Mick, if that's all right. Rosa It says, how are teachers supported on their daily routine for building connection, trust and safety in their classrooms?
How are they supported? I don't know where you are in the world, but in different parts of the world, different things are in play. But in terms of how you support a teacher, then I think that's about the community of the school supporting each other. So if I'm a member of a teaching team, then I am that, a team, and I contribute to that team, and I receive support from my colleagues, and I build the sort of community that we share as an ambition between us. If I'm a head teacher, then I think working with other colleague head teachers and with teachers in our schools, not just our own school, is absolutely crucial. I think people being part of a big profession is absolutely fundamental. I watch what's happening for new teachers around the globe and the way we're trying to help new teachers come into the profession. And I think one of the risks we've got at the moment is we are so busy bothering that they are efficient and effective in very, very measurable terms that we risk seeing them as operatives in classrooms rather than people who can make a difference to the very profession they're joining. And the communities of school and the communities of education in a nation that really draw young teachers, new teachers in, will help them to believe they can make a difference from the earliest days in the school. So it's not just about being supported, it's about feeling that you've a real role to play and an influence to make.
Thank you very much, Mick. We're headed for the break. I just would like to give you a minute just to say one last thing, to give a bit of encouragement or something that you've been burning to say and haven't said just yet. So Neil, would you like to go first?
Yeah. I would say, looking back on my career, the one decision I made, which I'm so pleased I did, and that was to be a teacher. There is no profession, in my view, that is more important, because you send messages to the future. You create our future. So please continue being an enthusiastic teacher or someone who works with schools. We need that real support for our children. And remember what I just said, you send messages to the future.
Thank you, Neil. Mick?
Well, I'll just say have a lovely... That's on, is it? Sorry. Look, I'll just say the main thing is that you need to have a brilliant day today, because today is the first day of the rest of the things that you need to sort out. And the chance to be together from across the globe is one that you shouldn't miss, even though it's a bit constrained by this technology. I'll echo what Neil said. Teaching is the most joyous job. It's something that makes a difference, and most people are in it because they see a future in the generations in front of them that they want to help to grow. They want those children to be the best they can be, and in turn to change this world and make it the best place it can be for all humanity.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Mick. And finally, Bridget, would you like to have the last words?
Okay, so to echo and amplify what's already been said this morning by Mick and Neil, I think all of us are here today because we really believe in this. But let's take strength and courage and impetus, motivation from one another, because we're not on our own. This is a movement, and that togetherness will ensure that the change happens. So let's keep on with this movement. And I would really commend to you, if you want to take your work further in schools, do have a look at our quality mark opportunities, because the quality mark endorsement for schools across the world really gives a great endorsement to this work. and helps to bring all staff, all communities on board, and gives the accolade that I think is sometimes so missing in education for this work. So, let's do this together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bridget, Mick and Neil. It's been a brilliant session. Thank you very, very much. We're heading for a break now, everybody, with 15-minute break. So we're coming back at 10:15. There'll be a new host and a new panel. There also might be a little treat just as we start the session. So don't be late back. Okay. Great to see you all. Thanks very much for joining us.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Other children should learn about values if they haven't already, because I believe that values kind of help to shape a person, because, like, take the value of forgiveness. If you didn't know how to forgive, then you'd always be fighting with someone. And then the value of love, you wouldn't be kind or caring to anyone. So I think it's very important that children learn about values as soon as possible.
Well, I think that values are very important in this school, because values obviously make the world go round, and without values this will be a very violent world. And in this school, with us having values, our school has changed completely, and we have stopped fighting. We've tried our best to clean the school. We've tried to make a good impression to other schools when we join competitions. Even though we don't win, we still want to cooperate, and we want to show that we care about the other schools, and we want to show that they did well and we did well, so that we all feel great. And I think that with values, this whole school has changed, and we wouldn't be anything without values.
So welcome everyone to our second session today. This session will be looking at values in action, values in the classroom. And we're delighted to have Anne and Jacob and Wunmi and Kate, who will be sharing their presentations on values in the classroom very shortly. My name is Richard Dunn, and I am Director of Education at the Harmony Project, and I'll be sharing some of that work later on in today's conference. But before we hear from Anne and Jacob and Wunmi and Kate, Bridget and Jane are going to warm us up and focus us with a moment of reflection.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. It's lovely to be here with everybody today. We're going to have a moment of reflection right now, because reflection is a really important, sometimes overlooked part of values-based education. And it's all about paying attention to our inner world, the inner curriculum, the world of our emotions and feelings. And what I love about it is that it can become a DIY tool for self-soothing, for self-nourishing and self-regulation. Because when we teach it to ourselves, we realise what a powerful tool that is. And when we teach it with children, they too can be let into the secret of this wonderful thing. I'm going to invite Jane Hawkes to lead us in a period of reflection, so that we can all just experience that for ourselves for a moment and experience the difference that that makes to us and our lives. So thank you, Jane. I'm handing over to you.
Thank you, Bridget. And just firstly, I want to say a genuine heartfelt hello to everybody who's joining us today. And I'm going to invite you to just take a moment to pause, to be. So let's begin by really feeling yourself, if you're sitting down, really well supported by whatever you're sitting on. And beginning to maybe just soften your gaze or close your eyes if you're willing to. Just focusing on your natural breath, just beginning to notice what it's like for you as you breathe in this moment. And as you begin to watch your own natural breath, take a moment to look at any activity that may be going on in your mind. Our minds are always so busy thinking about the next thing, maybe thinking about what's happened. And when we take these moments, we're inviting us to come right into this moment right now. So learning to watch whatever's happening in your mind is a beautiful skill to develop. To watch, to maybe take your breath to the activity. Just letting it know, you know it's there, it's okay. Now beginning to pay attention to any sensations or emotions that may be in your physical body too. And just taking your breath to those as well. Lightly breathing to any sensation. Just acknowledging that you see it. You know it's there. Now, see if you can slightly deepen your inhalation. Maybe really beginning to notice the movement of your physical body as you breathe in. And the way it just lets go and relaxes as you exhale. And see if you can take your attention to your heart. Maybe you can notice the beat of your heart. And as you begin to connect to your heart and all the wonderful things that it does for you physically, just allow the concept of hope to join your heart. And invite your heart to whisper to you what it hopes for. And as you connect to the hopes of your heart, coming from your deep inner wisdom, I'm just going to share a couple of verses from a beautiful blessing from John O'Donoghue. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. And now, very gently begin to become aware again of your physical body, maybe sitting on the chair or wherever you are right now. Allowing yourself to begin to notice your natural breathing once again. Maybe an awareness of some noise that might be in your environment, as well as listening to my voice. And gently, and with a huge amount of heartfelt love, bring yourself back to this moment to come and join this global celebration of values. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane. What a beautiful start to our second session. So we're going to ask Anne now to give the first presentation on values in the classroom, and then Jacob and Wunmi and Kate will follow on. And when we have completed the presentations and the sharing from our full guests, we will open up the conversation. So we're very keen to hear from you and to hear the sort of questions you would like to ask our panel in this session. So if you have any questions as you listen to our full guests, please do type them into the chat and we can share them a little bit later on in the session. So without further ado, over to you, Anne.
Good morning, everybody. So lovely to be here with you, and so lovely to have just had that time to stop and to think and to reflect and think back on everything in terms of values that has been really dear to me, and things that have happened in my career that have really touched me, and I hope have had a real impact on the children and the young people that I've been privileged to work alongside. I'm going to use just two examples just in my 5 minutes that I've got, but I just want to put it in a little bit of a context. Values words from the very beginning, when I had my first teaching post in Wandsworth with my reception class, those words are just beautiful. They're amazing, and they stand alone as just the most incredible words. But when you start looking at a thread, and in the summer I was really lucky to be part.
And could we just pause you a moment? I don't know if you can hear me. We need you to check if your YouTube is on, as there's some feedback. And can you hear? There seems to be some feedback from your system. Can you check if your YouTube is on? And then we can just see whether we can stop the feedback. Thank you.
Is that better? Is that better? Sorry, am I with you? Did you not hear any of that? I'm so sorry. Is that better? Is that, no, you're still getting it, are you? Getting some feedback? No. Okay. Do you want me to start again? I'm so sorry. Did you not hear any of that? I'm so sorry. Okay. No, so you're still getting it, are you? Getting some feedback? No. Okay. Do you want me to start again? I'm so sorry. Okay. So I'll just start with my good morning. I'm so sorry. Sorry, I feel as if I'm hearing myself. Just move on to Jacob. Move on to Jacob, because I can.
Jacob, would you like to go first, and we can just check on Anne's system? Hopefully there won't be any feedback from you. Thank you, Jacob.
Can I just check as well, if I got feedback myself? Does that sound okay? Okay, brilliant. I mean, thank you very much. Apologies, Anne, to take your space first, but thank you very much for inviting me. As in, it's very, very nice. And I spoke to Julie, who's my head teacher, who I'm sure lots of you know, and she asked, would I do this talk? And I'd love to, yes, please. What my standpoint then from values within the classroom, this is only my 4th year of teaching actually, and I'm really enjoying it. But my story starts back when I was, I grew up in North Wales, and I have cerebral palsy. I went to a mainstream school and it was brilliant. I can't complain at all, as in I had a very, very positive school life. And the way into football that I really enjoyed was through, like everybody else, going to the local football team, mainly because your friends go there, but also it's usually cheaper on petrol. My dad's an accountant, and he said, of course, go to the nearest football team. One challenge that I found there was with cerebral palsy at the time, I was maybe not the easiest on my feet, and I found it harder. My friends were brilliant, but growing up at the time, sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of the parents were very, very competitive, which, as in, I still see today, but I see there's a far better mix, and I'm not knocking those parents. They were very competitive and they were very results driven. And even though I was allowed to train for 2 years, I played all of one game for this team, which I got very upset when I was younger, and so did my parents. And not upset at the managers or the team, but upset about the fact that I maybe wasn't having the same experiences as other children. At the time, the orthotics were very similar to the ones you might have seen in Forrest Gump. They weren't quite the wooden stilts that you see, but they were very much. I had orthotic boots, and I walked around, and I sounded very much like a Tin Man out of Doctor Who. And I look like it too, and I don't mind that as well, because as in it was all part of growing up. I was very, very lucky that my mum's a chiropodist, and she was treating somebody who was the disability sports coordinator for the whole of Wales, who was a huge Everton fan, who said, I can of course find you a disability football team to play for, but instead of playing for that team, why don't you go and play for Everton? Living in North Wales, it was only 40 minutes over the border and under the tunnel to Liverpool. I went over and played for Everton, and I was 8 at the time. I was just going into year 4. I played under 16s football, which was crazy to play as an 8-year-old under 16s. They taught me so much. Some of the things that I'm sure my mother really doesn't want me to know at that age, but they taught me so many other things as well. And it was completely free. Everton paid for everything. I got training kits. I was able to go to different places. My head teacher at my primary school at the time was really big into sport and really big into inclusion, and would often say if I was allowed to go out for the day, I was able to go and travel all around the country playing disability football. That really set me up in a really good stead, because when it came to my GCSEs, I then stopped playing for Everton, mainly because of the large commute. I then went back and played in the same league as that very first football team I played for, and I played against them, and we very kindly beat them in the cup. It's something like a Hollywood moment that you'd never see before. I have no resentment to those parents that didn't play me. If anything, some of my closest friends, their dads, we've been on nights out, and they very kindly taxied us in and out of town. So in that respect, I show no resentment. And when I actually really think about it now, by no means do I think that they were prejudiced. I think they were just a closed mindset. I think a lot of the conversations that my dad had when I speak back was the idea that I might have been hurt, or I might have felt like I wasn't equal, or that I might feel that I was inadequate for the game. Again, as in, do I think that was maybe the right reason? I disagree. And that's the sort of thing that I take into the classroom from those experiences, that actually give people a chance. You never know how they're going to cope until you try them. And in 2 years, I played one game. For Everton, I played for 5 years. I played under 16s football and never played when I was 15 and 16 for Everton. The oldest I played was 14, so I was still grossly under how old I should have been at the time. I went to university, and I enjoyed university lifestyle, and I was then asked if I'd like to play for Birmingham. I went over and played for Birmingham, and at the time, Wales didn't have a cerebral palsy side, but they had a learning disability side. So I went over and played a lot of learning disability football for Wales. I was invited a couple of times if I'd like to go and play for England, but unfortunately my granddad is so Welsh that he said, no, never do it, or I will disown you, which is a lovely thing to say as a grandparent. But that was something that I was very strong on. I then was asked then if I'd like to go and try out for the preliminary squad of GB. Which was brilliant to go to the Paralympics. The unfortunate thing was I was also enjoying university lifestyle at the time, and I enjoyed a drink, and I enjoyed eating lots of other foods that potentially didn't fit with the diet. So I I had lots of different things that potentially were stopping me. I didn't unfortunately make it into the GB side because unfortunately I didn't look after my body enough, and unfortunately I suffered an injury. But one thing that I know that Julie, my head teacher, is very strong about is showing the same experiences that I had as a child. The idea that if at first I didn't succeed, I tried and I tried again. And the one thing that we do at Ledbury with the football is we rotate it with all sports, but in the classroom, lots of different things that we do. It might not be the right time for those children to learn division in September, but we might revisit it in May and they might get it. Everything that I do with the children in school at the moment is off my own back from my own experiences, that it might not be the right time. And if they don't get it straight away, it's not the end of the world. Don't give up. And at the end of the day, it might be a different avenue you need to go down. It might not even be me. It might be that I'm maybe not the best fit for you as a teacher. My styles might be slightly different. And it's just making sure we find the right fit for these children, because it didn't go very well at the start for me. But again, picked myself up, dusted myself off, and I've got to where I've got to just by trying and trying again. The more avenues and the different things that you try, as in the best that you can be. And again, it's not going to be the best fit for people. Like I said before, those parents are the very, very first instance. I'm very, very good friends with those dads that were actually running my football team. Do I think that they were the best coaches? They maybe have a closed mindset, but I've had far better coaches. But they would have been a good coach for some other children that needed that style of approach. So by no means do I take animosity at all against these people. But the one thing I'd say is just, as in, sometimes you might not be the right fit for somebody, all right? And values and showing your values, be kind. And if you're not the person that you need at the time, as in, try again. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacob. What a wonderful story you've just shared, and what resilience you have shown. Such an important message for all our young people as they're growing up. Now, we hope that Anne is able to join us again without any feedback. She's got her fingers crossed, and so have we all. So, Anne, we're going to come back to you, and hope we can hear you without any feedback.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me properly now? Is that okay? So sorry. Yeah, I started off by just saying good morning to you, just saying that values have just been part of me, as Jacob just described, and part of, I think, of who I am, my family were, my upbringing. But I've taught in such a wide variety of settings with such diverse young people, and actually can see the power of them wherever you are, in whichever way. But we just have to help all young people. Talking about the classroom today, so I won't go on to adults, but everybody needs to have that opportunity to use those beautiful, powerful, strong words that are values words, and actually just see how they work in life and see how they work for you as an individual, and within your community and within your family and within your class. So I think as a teacher and as subsequently as a head teacher, and being privileged to do both those roles, loved both those roles, still love both those roles. I think it was just about, and I think I started saying, and you had all that feedback about my amazing golden thread that I took from a VbE meeting that we had in the summer, which really resonated with me, because those values they just go through everything. They're part of everything. They bring things together. You can unpick it and you can sew it back together again with those amazing threads. But you have to have those strong threads. You have to have that understanding and that thought. And it's about how we actually help our young people from 3 all the way up to being really lucky to work with 17-year-olds. It's how you unlock that and how you help those people be able to do what Jane and Neil talked to us about such a lot about, reflecting, having that courage, having that opportunity to do that. So for me, how we do it, we have to give space, we have to give time, we have to give permission, we have to help them have the courage, and that's our curriculum, that's our school ethos, that's what happens in the playground, what happens before school, what happens after school, what happens in our interactions with our staff and our young people within our schools. So we have to find a way to do that, and it cannot get squeezed out, and it's really tough for that not to be squeezed out, as some of our speakers spoke about this morning, but we have to hold on to it. And And that golden thread I will not let go as long as I'm in the school environment. So just how yoga, street dance, mime, theatre, drama, music, art. There were just so many beautiful ways of actually helping young people have that courage and be able to really live values, because I think that's what we really, really ought to be doing. So I've just got a couple of things here. We didn't have slides, but I don't talk from slides anyway. But, you know, a crystal, a bag of crystals just to hold, to just give them that courage and that sort of be able to reflect on something and really think. So have something like that around. I always have these amazing keys that I was given. You know, these keys can represent unlocking, you know, unlocking people's minds, people's souls, people's thoughts. We need to unlock. We need to find a way of unlocking for all of our children. I had a quote once that a child gave to me, and I think it's beautiful. And it said, and it's not, you see it everywhere. I think it was on lots of books in lots of supermarkets, but it's amazing. You know, a teacher takes a hand, opens a mind, and touches a heart. And we can all do that. We can find a way of doing that. So just, I've always wanted to be side by side with people. I think if you can actually be next to them and be with them, it's incredibly powerful. And you do that with them, and then you let them go off to be adults and young people, and you hope that some of that work that you've done side by side with them will continue through with them. So a 17-year-old, I'll just give you two examples, if I may. A 17-year-old that I was working with in Clapham, and he had come back to us from a youth offenders, a time at youth offenders. Amazing young man. He was doing, or we were doing as a group, some creative writing, and I always try and find something for them to feel, touch, just to take that away from them, take a little bit of the pressure off them. And we were working with clay, and so they could just use their clay in whichever way they wanted. There was no expectation about what happened with the clay, apart from the fact that I would rather it not be thrown across the room at anybody. So they were working with their clay. We were looking at creative writing, and this young man started talking about his experiences, and the group were amazing because we'd worked on respect, tolerance, equality, love. What does real love mean? And we talked about that. So he started to talk, and he talked about how, and it was really powerful for him from where he'd come, freedom, equality. You're always talking, it was just, it was amazing. Respect, understanding, but he was coming from a very different place, and those people really respected what he had to say. And I was just amazed. But we weren't talking about values. It wasn't an assembly. It wasn't a special PSE time. It wasn't a reflective time. We had all that, but because we had all that, this person felt comfortable enough to be able to talk about it and wanted to talk about it. And it was just incredible. And I think I could talk a lot about that session, but I won't, because I've only got a little bit of time, and I want to talk about my 7-year-old, the other end of the spectrum. But he created at the end of that session a little pot of flowers from his clay. And he said to me, I wasn't married at the time, so he said, Miss Leader, could I just go and get my kit bag? I said, why do you want to go and get your kit bag? He said, I want to take this home to my grandma, but I don't want anybody to see me carrying a clay pot that I'd created into the most beautiful flowers. So yeah, go and get your kit bag. He came back with his kit bag, and it happened to be the Thursday I was working with them was just before Mothering Sunday. And he said to me, I'm taking it home to my nan. She's been my mum. She loves me. She gets me. And I just thought that was amazing. But that was just one example. And he probably would be in his, I won't give it away, but he'd probably be in his sort of 30s, late 30s now. And I really know that his weekends and his evenings may not respect values because of the community he's in and the situations he's in. But I really, truly believe that he will have taken some of those with him. And I really hope, and often pray for him and trust that he will have taken some of that. So that's the 17-year-old. have I got time to do my 7-year-old? My 7-year-old was yesterday. And we were looking at a story. We did a virtual assembly, which I know all head teachers are struggling with, how we bring our children together, how we have that feeling of community. And we had an amazing assembly. And then a class wanted to stay on Zoom and talk to me. So I stayed on Zoom and talked to them. And we were talking about the moth that was part of this story. Now, our value at the moment is peace. And although we focus on a month, our values, like I said about the golden thread, they're there. We link them, we use them. We might focus on it for a month, but we pick up on all of our values whenever it's right and whenever it's there and whenever the children want to talk about it. And we were talking about a moth and a peppered moth that has speckled salt and pepper wings, although the children kept calling it salt and vinegar, but it was fine. That's really lovely. So this salt and pepper moth, how it would survive in a world that was actually getting darker because of pollution. And that in the family of these peppered moths, there were some that are born with charcoal wings, which was an issue to start off with, but as the world changed, they could camouflage and the salt and pepper ones couldn't. So we were just talking, and I left them with a question because I'm coming back to the end of that book. So I left them with a question about what they think might happen at the end of this story, but also what they would like to happen, given what they feel and what they think and what they understand and what they want. And one little chap said to me, Mrs. Phillips, the charcoal one will just go and stand in front or fly in front of the salt and peppered one. We'll just protect it and it will just be there for them. He said, that's peace, isn't it? That's friendship, isn't it? Right? Yeah, that is just amazing. And it was just a beautiful moment. And I think we just have to, you know, we capture those moments. I have so many, which have just made my job so rewarding. But it is actually how we at school create those opportunities to allow for that. And I think that's what's really, really powerful. Some of my children, you give them a camera. I happen to have a little one here, which sometimes when the children could come in, they, from behind a camera, you know, children can go and actually take a picture of what they want to tell you, even if they can't tell you. It's really, really powerful, really, really powerful. So I just think it is about making sure that we know that they know that we value anything they have to say, that we explore it and we just give them that mission. And I just think we help them discover, we help them uncover, we help them understand, we help them express. And values are such a powerful way of doing that, because it gives us who might be a bit more nervous about it. It's there, things that VbE have produced, the work that goes into values-based education. There's such a platform for us to be able to do this for all of our young people. And when it happens, that instance of the 17-year-old, the 7-year-old, and so many more that I could tell you about in between, it's just pure magic. So for me, it's just a massive thank you for values, because I was working on it in Wandsworth and in Clapham before I came to Herefordshire, but definitely the values family that I have discovered and been able to be part of since I came to Herefordshire has just really brought that thread together for me so beautifully. So thank you, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Anne. Your passion for children and the values culture that you have created for them absolutely shines through what you have just shared. I've got this image of you now walking around the school with a big clump of keys in your back pocket and the children listening for you as you walk down the corridor with those keys. So thank you so much, Anne. What a lovely message you've shared, and that golden thread of values. My goodness, if we had that running through education throughout the world, what a changed world we would see. So Wunmi, over to you now. We're delighted to have you with us, and we're really fascinated to hear what you're going to tell us about your work in Lagos in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm so happy to be in this World Conference talking about value-based education. In Nigeria, we had this dive into it in 2017, and then I was subject teacher at my secondary school. That was at a senior secondary school, like where you have children from ages 12 to 17. And at that time, the school is located in a very less privileged area of Lagos State. And there were challenges with the way they react to things, their attitudes, and a whole lot was wrong with students in that area because of their background. It's no choice of theirs. Where you come from has a way of getting into you. And I was posted to the school, and I had the opportunity to be trained by Patricia Bichi. She came to Nigeria under the Foundation for Value Education Transformation. And a lot of us came for the training, and I was just caught up in the whole value education issue because I just saw it as what I needed at that time to make an impact in the life of the children. And it really worked because getting back to school, I went into the arts. I had to train along with my school leader at that time that came for the training. And what we did was we had to pass the torch to others because you can't do the value-based education alone. You have to let all others, your team in the school, to get in the bandwagon with you. And so we had the opportunity of passing down or training the trainers so that they know what we want to achieve in the school. And we started off on a very good note. The school leader then, Mrs. Okuneye, was my school leader, the principal, and she caught off the fire. We were all, really wanted to change the lives of this young one. And I will say that the principles, the values that were picked were really picked by everyone because we had to discuss it as a school unit. As like I was a chemistry and biology teacher, so what I did was that I picked the values for each subject along with my students. So it wasn't like I was enforcing anything on them. We were actually going about it together. We discussed. There were discussion sessions beginning of the term. Okay, what are the values that we're going to go by this week, this month, or kind of in the old school it was weekly because we had this pending issue of trying to change. I told you about their attitude and all that. So in my classroom, what I did was that we had to pick values monthly. In a term, you have 3 months across the term. So we had to pick those ones that we see that we need to work on. And they were so willing. We had self-discipline. We had the value of loving one another because they had to learn how to show empathy because some people just behave, they react to actions of people, not knowing that they need to put themselves in those people's shoes to know what they're actually going through before you start reacting. We had integrity. We had courtesy because at that time in the school, we had issues with the children coming in without greeting anybody. They just come in, they do their thing, they are here to learn, they just do what, teenagers and their usual ways of behavior. So, and it really reflected at a point, they were conscious of how to react, how to behave, their attitudes. They now began to became models to even others outside the school. And the teachers, the educators, every part of the school, the cleaners, everyone, we had to go along with each other. And during school assembly, the students, like Anne talked about it, they were able to display using drama. They were able to display making presentations. They come up with things on their own. They had that liberty. We give them we talk about the values, and then they come up with dramas, they come up with live presentations, debate topics. They give meanings, their own in-depth meaning to all the values that we're trying to portray for those months and weeks. And at the end of the day, it's brought about change in the children. They became vibrant adolescents with great expectations. They had impromptu speeches on the assembly, during classes, there was this particular word that we now had as our watchword because most of them, they have issues with child abuse at home, and so many other things. And I taught them that they needed to speak out. You can't just keep mute and just keep everything to yourself. Some of them are working adults, working adolescents. They had to fend for themselves because of their background. So they needed someone to talk to, because we noticed that some react by behaving in a disorderly manner, just to kind of tell you, I need attention. Please help me. That's their way of telling people. So value-based education helped us to remodel those children, their mindsets. They knew the importance of sitting down, relaxing, and reflecting, trying to look inwards and calm yourself down, even in the midst of whatever that is going on around you. And I must say, for a fact, that working together as a team brought about a lot of changes. If you're trying to implement value-based education, collaboration, teamwork, which are also values, they are very, very important. And you need to ensure that everyone catches the fire, not only one person championing the action in the school. And then in Lagos State, right now, I work very closely with the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Lagos State. And in the process of working with her, we have been able to imbibe and kind of include and give paving way for value-based education in the curriculum, so that we can have a curriculum that we have tried to infuse and integrate value-based education. Because if you, and that is why I see myself as an educator, I see myself as someone that God places me in places so that I can make impact, not by my own choice. And anything I see to do, I try to achieve it. And I would say it's going to be, or it is reflecting. In my school, those students, some of them have graduated, they're in university, and you see them coming from that background and changing, becoming champions, role models in that place. Because you can't actually enforce values on people, because it's something that comes from your background, but it can actually be, you can actually model it in such a way that they see it and they want to imbibe it. And that is what we were able to do. They knew that courtesy, being a teacher, you're cautious. You have to be cautious to tell them to be cautious. So they learned it from us, to the extent that sometimes I have to greet first. I greet them first to model what we're talking about. And when we say obedience, even being self-disciplined, I ensure at that time, I can remember vividly, I make sure I get to class 5 minutes before my period. We have periods that you take. So it's not like the teacher is fully in class, because it's senior secondary school. So 5 minutes before my class is ready, as in I'm supposed to go in for biology class now, I'm right there. They've seen me waiting, because I'm disciplining myself. So I expect you to try to caution yourself when you have to do things and tasks that I give you to do. And there's so many. The love, I show it, the principal, all of the school leaders, they model it. And we were able to change the attitude of the children. We were able to put into them the seed of knowing that when you have integrity, even though you might not get the reward now, you will get your reward. Anything you do, you get good things coming to you, because you're open to people and you're looking out for others, so that you don't get to step on people's toes or try to ride over people. And in our nation, we have a whole lot going on, even right now that the protest is ongoing. But I know that when we continue to sow the seed of value, even in those lives that hated so they don't have it, it's going to boomerang into a very wonderful thing, and we have a wonderful future. I must say that I think it's part of the values that these young ones that are saying they want this, they want that. It's part of what is stirring them up, to let them know that they actually have some certain rights, and there is a positive way of getting those things, not in a rough way. They take care of themselves. They actually feed themselves. The people donate to feed them, to support what is going on. And it's a wonderful thing. And I look at Lagos in Nigeria, where we have young ones championing good things and saying this is what should be done. And probably in one way or the other, the adults are not doing it. And they are coming up to say, yeah, we know what is right and this is what we want to do. So being, if I call myself a value-based ambassador, yeah, because I try to model it, even with my colleagues, even as I am now, I do that. I told you the curriculum department, we're trying to work on something. And in fact, it has been, it's not like in the pipeline, it's almost done. Because we're launching the curriculum soon, a curriculum that Lagos State has tried to impute values and skills, the 21st century skills, so that the students can actually have a wonderful learning process and having the skills they need for the future. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope I've been able to share a little out of what I have. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
An absolute pleasure to hear you speak today and share such wise words. And I was really captured by your words around everyone catching the fire of the values work that you are doing. What a wonderful expression that is. And it's really clear that you're not wanting, as you said, to impose these values on people. You want young people to really understand them, discuss them, agree them, and then own them and share them out in the world. And what an amazing impact you are having in such a positive way. So good luck with all the rest of your work. Thank you for being with us and for sharing such an important and powerful message. Wonderful work. So, Kate, we are really looking forward to hearing about your work and particularly around designing an ethical
Thanks, Richard.
curriculum.
Good morning,
Over
everyone.
To you.
So I'd like to talk about the importance of schools in delivering an ethical curriculum, what this is and why it's so relevant now, and also how it's linked so closely to the VbE philosophy, which is based on valuing self, others, and the environment through a dedication to teaching particular themes within the curriculum. So firstly, an ethical curriculum is a holistic curriculum. It's an incredibly altruistic, often charitable curriculum with exposure to real and authentic and quite emotionally provocative themes, which in turn help to promote the development of collective and core personal values in children and in staff as well. So let's ask, why do we need to teach an ethical curriculum? Well, we want to ensure that we're teaching a diverse and colourful curriculum that promotes equity and inclusion for all. And when I say all, I'm referring specifically to those within the protected characteristics groups. We want to be educating our young people on issues around sustainable living and the importance of becoming globally minded citizens in order to make the world a kinder and a more equitable place. We want our young people to know and to live their core values and to know their purpose in the world so deeply that they develop an authentic self-esteem with a potential to become future change makers. As values-based practitioners, teaching a curriculum in this way is naturally intrinsic to us, but the challenges lie in implementing it within the constraints of the educational climate and the education system. But now's a critical time for reform, and I think it's a brilliant time to rethink your curriculum and ask yourself, how well is my curriculum serving my pupils and my community? How will what I teach in my school make the world a better place? So there are certain subjects that in the curriculum that are naturally easier to use as a platform for teaching more ethical subjects, such as teaching about climate change through geography or LGBTB relationships through RSE or PHCE. However, we need to think carefully about how we interweave relevant themes into the subjects that we already teach and usualize these ethical issues. And when I refer to themes, I'm referring to teaching ethical issues that are relevant and contextual and necessary to teach in schools. I'm talking about teaching anti-racism. I'm talking about teaching equity. I'm talking about teaching poverty, about social justice, about climate change, about sustainable living, conflict management, and all the topics that if we choose to ignore to teach, then we potentially allow our children to grow up with misconceptions, with narrow minds, and with ignorant viewpoints, I think, by default. we have the responsibility to ensure that that doesn't happen, and that we empower children to want to make the world a better place. And this is why teaching through values and the inner curriculum is like so beautifully aligned with an ethical curriculum. So the first step then in thinking about an ethical curriculum is to think about how meaningful your content is to your young people. It's important to see, for children, to see the relevance of what they're being taught. So I think we need to be aware of what's going on globally, nationally and locally, to inspire us to incorporate those moral themes into our teaching. And as a quick example, just thinking specifically about teaching equity, there are so many themes to be addressed. You've got gender pay gap, global inequality in education, stereotyping, rights for LGBTQI+, racism, social mobility, the justice system, poverty, ableism, protected characteristics. There are so many imperative topics to be interwoven into the curriculum in just that one area. So I think learning to focus on themes like this help us develop values of self-respect, involvement, empathy, and advocacy, to name a few. So using your values within your curriculum authentically and deeply is the key. Whilst values are completely universal, the values you choose to focus on can be specifically relevant to your school context as well. So I suggest taking a look at your holistic strengths and areas for development. You might work in a school which has got a large refugee community, and therefore you want to nourish the values of empathy and humanity. Or perhaps you're in a school which is lacking in diversity, and consequently your values need to promote respect and equality. Or on the contrary, you might be in a school which is doing great work on climate change or celebrating diversity, and then you might want to strengthen your ethical curriculum through a focus on the values of leadership or service. So finally, renaming and reframing the titles and outcomes of your topics and schemes of work can be incredibly powerful in helping you to shift the mindset on the ethical and moral aspects of a topic. As an example, if you're looking into teaching a unit of work in Key Stage 2 on design in DT, then why not reframe the focus onto the effect of fast fashion? Then you can look at the impact of child labour and therefore developing the values of empathy and agency. So curriculum development is a long haul task, but it's an incredibly beautiful one, and an ethically focused curriculum which is carefully crafted will mean the children and the families and the planet will reap the benefits for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. My goodness, I feel like we now need a full day with you to really explore all these amazing curriculum opportunities that you've highlighted. I'm getting a strong sense that there's just so much you could be sharing with us over the next hour or two or three.
To squeeze that into 5 minutes was insane, Richard. Maybe it's flavour.
But thank you. I think what you've done is you've really made us think about what we're educating for. And as you say, we have so many things we need to be grappling with right now, and we only have so many hours in the day. So where do we put our time? What do we prioritize? I think these are really important questions, aren't they, for us to be asking right now? And the sort of areas that you're highlighting are so important for us to be reconsidering and reimagining what our education should be about. So there's something for us all to think about, and maybe we can come back to that on another occasion, and we can give you more time to share all the important work. It's really exciting what you're doing. You know, I take my hat off to you for all the imagination and creativity and energy that you're putting into it. And so good luck with all of that, and thank you for managing to distill it down into just a few minutes. But I think we got a message very strongly, and the application of values into learning is such a key area, isn't it, for us all to think about. Great. Okay, well, we're at 11:10 now. We've had a few technical issues at the beginning, but thankfully we were fine, and it was wonderful to hear from Anne and Jacob and Winmi and Kate. And thank you again to Jane and to Bridget for calming us at the beginning with that lovely reflection and getting us to just put everything into perspective as we should. So we're going to have a break now in a moment. I don't know, I'm just going to quickly check and see if there are any final questions that anyone has to ask. There's been lots of positive feedback, which is wonderful, and a real endorsement of all the great work that the four of you are doing. So I think we should leave it on that very positive note. All the fantastic work you are doing, very thought-provoking, brilliant, ingenious, wonderful. These are the words we want to hear. And we wish all of you in your various endeavours every success. And we look forward to hearing more about how you're taking this work of values and applying it into your education settings wherever you are in the world. So thank you, everyone.